You look at a map and you see this jagged red line,
Right.
and the general just points at it and says, there it is.
Yeah.
We are here, and the enemy is over there.
Safe or unsafe?
Exactly. It's clean. It's binary, and honestly, it's incredibly comforting.
Oh, it is. I mean, we are hardwired to want conflicts to be visible, right? To be neatly categorized. We
Yeah.
want to know exactly where the danger lies so we can, stand on the correct side of that line.
But then you actually step into the world of modern asymmetrical warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And you start looking at, international drug trafficking, covert intelligence, these massive shadow economies.
Yeah, the whole hidden infrastructure.
Right. And suddenly that map is just completely, utterly useless. I mean, we're looking at a combat landscape that is practically invisible. It's everywhere and nowhere all at once.
It is the absolute definition of a shadow war.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you're listening to this right now, we know exactly who you are.
You're the learner.
Exactly. You are not here for some, superficial textbook summary or a neatly packaged soundbite on the evening news.
Right.
You are here to understand the raw, hidden mechanics of how the world actually works. And you want to do that without getting just buried under an avalanche of raw data.
Which is easy to do with this stuff.
Oh, so easy.
Yeah.
So today, we have a phenomenal mission. We are unpacking this gripping, incredibly detailed dossier.
Yeah.
It's based on the factual accounts found in the source material, Crossfire.
And it is intense.
It really is.
Yeah.
We are going to trace this labyrinthine narrative. And I mean, it spans from the freezing, jagged mountains of Afghanistan to the scorching, claustrophobic deserts of Iraq.
And then wildly all the way to the affluent, rain-slicked streets of Dublin.
Right. But before we plunge into all of this, we really need to set the parameters impartially.
Yes, absolutely crucial. The material we are examining today, it touches heavily on very intense, decades-long geopolitical conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
We are talking about Soviet, British, American, and Iranian forces all operating in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And we want to be explicitly clear to you, the listener, we are not taking political sides here.
At all.
Right. We aren't endorsing any specific national viewpoints or foreign policies.
Our job today is strictly forensic.
Exactly. We are analyzing the facts, the events, and the raw tactical mechanics of this shadow war exactly as they are laid out in the source dossier.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand where this entire labyrinth leads, we really have to establish the baseline.
Right.
And the baseline for our central figure, this ex-SAS operator named Nick Stone, it's a visceral, completely chaotic reality.
Yeah, it really is.
So picture this. It's June 17th, 1986.
Okay.
We are 60 miles west of Jalalabad, Afghanistan. Nick is embedded with the Mujahideen.
Right, fighting the Soviets.
Exactly. They are fighting this proxy war against the Soviets.
Yeah.
And the environment is unforgiving in a way that is, honestly, it's just hard to comprehend.
Unforgiving almost doesn't do it justice. I mean, we are talking about a world where survival is paramount and human life is incredibly brutally cheap.
Yeah.
Nick is hiding in this mud hut village. It's clinging to a plateau just above the snow line.
Oh, it's freezing.
Oh, the air is thin, the cold is absolutely piercing, but the overarching threat isn't just ground troops, it's the constant looming dread of Soviet Hind gunships.
Right. The Hind, that's the Mate-74 helicopter, isn't it?
Exactly. It's essentially a flying tank.
Wow.
Yeah, it's heavily armored, it's bristling with rocket pods, and it has this massive multi-barrel machine gun right under the nose.
Jeez.
If a Hind spots a target in a village like this, it doesn't just engage the target, it annihilates the entire grid square.
That is terrifying.
And the Mujahideen fighters, like Nick's local counterpart, this guy named Ahmad Bameh, they have survived 7 years of this.
Right.
They are hardened beyond belief. I mean, they are fighting a superpower using very basic rifles.
Yeah, just relying on the terrain.
Exactly. Intimate knowledge of the mountainous terrain and their absolute unshakable faith.
And right in the middle of this freezing, lethal environment, we get this incredibly intimate, horrifying tragedy.
Yeah. This part is tough.
It really is. It's the tragedy of Farah. She's this 14-year-old girl in the village.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick recognizes her because just a few months prior, she had this cheeky grin. She used to bring him watermelon or water from the well.
Right.
But then the societal reality of the region just sets in. She is married, basically sold as property to a man 3 times her age.
Awful.
She's abused. She's constantly covered in bruises. And she reaches a point of absolute sheer desperation.
Yeah.
She chooses what she perceives to be the only exit hatch available to her. She covers herself in kerosene and sets herself on fire.
It is a stark, devastating illustration of the societal trap in that environment.
Truly.
By tradition, women, there had to be attached to a male relative or a husband just to survive. There was zero independent infrastructure for them.
Right.
So for many, this horrific act, which is referred to grimly as the kerosene trick, it was the only way out of a brutal marriage. But what is truly striking here isn't just the horrifying physical reality of the act. You know, it's not just the smell of burnt meat and accelerant or the skin peeling from her face.
Yeah.
It is the absolute apathy of the people around her.
See, that's what blew my mind. Ahmad, the Mujahideen fighter, is
Yeah.
completely indifferent to this.
Totally numb to it.
He basically looks at this burning child and says, leave her, Nick. It's just a girl. Let's go eat.
Wow.
She's just a piece of the landscape to him, like a broken tool.
It really speaks to the psychological callus that forms when you live in a constant state of total war.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To Ahmad, death is omnipresent. So a single civilian death, especially a young girl who holds no tactical value to him, it barely registers on his emotional radar.
But it registers on Nick's radar.
Yes, it does.
Nick doesn't leave her. And this is so vital for understanding who Nick Stone actually is.
Right.
Because beneath that hardened, cynical operator exterior,
Yeah.
the guy who blows up bridges and builds improvised explosive devices for a living,
Yeah.
there is a core of deeply hidden empathy. He takes off his waistcoat to cushion her head on the dirt. He takes his grimy AK-47 bayonet, slices a piece of watermelon, and carefully drips the juice onto her ruined, burnt lips, just to ease her thirst as she dies.
And he stays by her side as the sun sets.
He provides her with one final, profound moment of human dignity in a place completely devoid of it.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. But the reality of war, it doesn't linger on heartbreak.
No, it doesn't.
We flash forward 21 years, it's 2007, and we are violently transported to Iraq, just northwest of Basra.
Right.
And the environment completely flips. Nick isn't fighting the Soviets in the freezing mountains anymore.
He's working private security.
Exactly. He's basically babysitting a media crew embedded with the British Army's two lengths of Kingsman. And the sensory shift is just jarring.
Oh, it's a massive shift. We go from the quiet, freezing death on a mountain to the deafening, claustrophobic 120-degree interior of a warrior-armored fighting vehicle.
I can't even imagine that heat.
We are plunged into this steel box. The tracks are screeching over asphalt, the 30-millimeter Rawdon cannons are firing outside, the massive diesel engine is just roaring.
It sounds like a sensory nightmare.
It is. And they are surrounded by this cage-like structure called bar armor.
Okay, hold on. Explain the bar armor.
Yeah.
Because when I picture a tank, I just picture, thick steel plates.
Right.
What is the point of bolting what looks like a giant metal bird cage to the outside of the vehicle?
Well, it's all about physics, and specifically the threat of rocket-propelled grenades, or RPGs.
Okay.
An RPG uses what's called a shaped charge. When it hits solid steel, the explosive force in the warhead inverts a copper cone into a superheated jet of molten metal.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that jet cuts right through the armor. So bar armor, or slat armor, is designed to disrupt that.
How does it do that?
The slats are spaced very specifically. The idea is that the incoming RPG warhead gets pinched between the steel bars.
Oh, I see.
It crushes the firing mechanism before it can detonate. Or it causes it to detonate early, far enough away from the hull that the molten jet dissipates before breaching the personnel compartment.
So you're literally driving around in a cage, just hoping it catches the rockets?
Pretty much.
That sounds absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, Nick compares it to being locked inside a safe, while people outside are trying to get in with blowtorches.
That's a very accurate analogy.
And inside this rattling, boiling tin can, illuminated only by these eerie red nightlights, we meet the two journalists Nick is trying to keep alive.
Right, Dom and Pete.
Yeah. First, there's Dominic Kondratovich Dom.
Mm-hmm.
He's this incredibly handsome, super arrogant Polish star reporter,
Nick calls him Platinum Bollocks.
which is such a great nickname.
Yeah. Dom
acts like he has this invisible force field around him. Like his status as an objective journalist makes him magically immune to the 7.62 millimeter rounds flying around them.
He treats the war zone like a movie set where he is the principal actor.
Yes.
And contrasting Dom completely is his cameraman, Pete.
I love Pete.
Pete is great. He's a Bermondsey-accented, incredibly fastidious ex-tank soldier.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who meticulously flosses his teeth in a war zone.
and washes his socks every single night. He hangs them up to dry in the dust.
That's such a specific detail.
He even wears a ground-down British steel helmet instead of the standard modern media gear, just because he says the lip gets in the way of his camera lens.
He's a professional.
Totally. And his entire motivation, his whole reason for being there, is getting enough money to get back home to South London to see his 7-year-old stepdaughter, Ruby.
You know, thinking about Pete with his camera lens right in the middle of a firefight, it really makes me think about the observer effect in physics.
The idea that simply observing a phenomenon changes the phenomenon.
Exactly. I mean, does the presence of the cameras change how the soldiers act?
That's a fascinating question.
You have these British soldiers, the Kingsmen, fighting for their actual lives in the dirt, and right behind them is Pete with an infrared camera lens, documenting it all for the evening news. And then the irony of Dom standing up in active fire zones, doing his solemn piece to camera. He genuinely believes the war will somehow pause to accommodate his broadcast.
It's a profound disconnect from reality. But if we connect this to the bigger picture and pull back to look at the broader mechanics here, the contrast between 1986 Afghanistan and 2007 Iraq shows a massive evolution in warfare.
How so?
Well, in 1986, Nick was fighting a relatively straightforward proxy war. You had a uniformed Soviet army.
Right.
But in 2007, the British are fighting a complex, fragmented insurgency that is secretly funded by neighboring Iran.
Yeah, it's way more muddy.
And the technology on the ground has changed the actual mechanics of human combat. Take the PRR's personal role radios.
I noticed that in the source, because in movies you always see soldiers yelling over the gunfire, waving their arms around to signal a flank.
Exactly. A few years prior, infantry had to rely on shouting and visual hand signals, which is chaotic, it's slow, and it gives away your position. But by 2007, every single soldier is wired into a secure local chat net with an ear pad and a boom mic.
Wow.
It completely revolutionized urban combat dynamics. They can coordinate micro-movements, call out targets on specific floors of buildings, and organize covering fire in pitch darkness without making a single sound.
So the battlefield is entirely networked.
Yes. The infantry squad operates as a single organism linked by radio waves.
But as advanced as the infantry is, the conflict isn't just about networked soldiers fighting insurgents over ideology.
Not at all.
Dom, our arrogant reporter, he isn't actually interested in the standard good guys versus bad guys narrative.
Right.
He's completely obsessed with the hidden parasitic economy that is thriving right underneath the gunfire.
Yes.
And that obsession leads us directly to a terrifying sequence at a morning vehicle checkpoint.
The vehicle checkpoint, or VCP. This is a crucial, high-risk tactical setup.
Set the scene for us.
The British will take two 25-ton Warrior vehicles and park them at a 45-degree angle to the road, essentially creating a tight chicane.
Like a zigzag.
Right. One cannon faces the outbound traffic, one faces the inbound. Every single vehicle, from a battered sedan to a donkey cart, has to slow to a crawl and weave through this tight space to be searched.
What's the strategic value there? I mean, why force a bottleneck?
It's designed to choke off the movement of heavy weapons and explosives through the city.
Okay, that makes sense.
By forcing the vehicles to navigate the chicane, you strip away their momentum. But the massive drawback is that it makes the British soldiers a completely static target.
Oh.
You are anchoring yourself to one piece of geography in a very hostile city.
Open season, as Pete the cameraman calls it.
Exactly.
And sure enough, an old blue Toyota Hilux approaches the checkpoint. A white rag is fluttering from the cab, pretending to surrender.
But the driver's face is grimly set.
Yeah, he drops his head and he just floors the accelerator. It's a suicide bomber.
And the tactical response is instantaneous. The 30-millimeter cannons on the Warriors open up and they completely shred the engine block of the Hilux.
But it keeps going.
The momentum carries it forward. It slams violently into the bar armor of Nick's Warrior. The sheer mass of the 25-ton British armor arrests the truck, crushing the front end.
Wow.
And the soldiers immediately swarm the cab, because the threat isn't over just because the vehicle stopped.
Right. There is this incredibly tense moment where they look down into the footwell of the crushed truck.
Yeah.
And they see a car battery. The bomber had wired the negative terminal and was literally holding the positive wire in his bleeding hand.
He was ready to touch it to the terminal.
Right, to complete the circuit and detonate the payload. But the soldiers ripped the wire away just in time.
Completing the circuit is the most basic, foolproof detonator.
Really?
Yeah, it bypasses any electronic jamming equipment the British might be running. It relies purely on the physical action of the driver.
And when they peel back the green tarpaulin on the back of the truck to see what this guy was trying to detonate, what they find is chilling.
Very.
It's a massive pile of plastic explosive, expertly molded around a cluster of 6 pristine 81mm mortar rounds.
Now, let's look at the mechanics of an 81mm mortar round. This isn't a small hand grenade.
No.
This is heavy caliber indirect fire weaponry designed to level buildings and shred infantry over a wide radius.
Okay.
To wire 6 of them together with plastic explosive is to create an improvised device capable of vaporizing the checkpoint and the armored vehicles.
That is massive.
But it's the specific origin of these munitions that is crucial. Nick points out a critical detail to Pete the cameraman.
Right.
The brass around the percussion caps is shiny and new, and the base of the rounds is stamped in English. It says, Lot 16, 2006.
No, wait. If they are stamped in English, doesn't that mean they are stolen British or American weapons? I mean, why would insurgents be using NATO gear?
It's a great question, but no. The English stamping is a deliberate piece of intelligence.
Really?
English is the international language of exported munitions. Arms dealers and state-sponsored weapons manufacturers use English lot numbers for global tracking, regardless of the origin country.
Wow, I had no idea.
These are brand new, heavy caliber weapons, and the intelligence clearly points to them being manufactured in and exported from neighboring Iran.
So Iran is supplying them.
Yes. Iran is using the border porosity to flood the Iraqi insurgency with high-grade explosives to bleed the British forces.
Okay, so Iran is supplying the bombs. But Dom, the reporter, he doesn't just focus on the mortars.
No, he notices something else entirely.
He forces Pete to take his camera and zoom in heavily on the dead bomber's arms hanging out of the truck.
Right.
And they're absolutely covered in track marks. The bomber was a heavy, chronic heroin user.
Yeah.
And Dom passionately argues his theory right there in the desk while the truck is literally still smoking.
He says these insurgents aren't ideological warriors fighting for religious supremacy or national liberation.
They're junkies.
Exactly. They are fueled by Iranian heroin, and they are essentially just useful pawns.
So what does this all mean? I mean, it reminds me of a magician's sleight of hand.
That's a good way to put it.
The explosions, the firefights, the religious rhetoric on the news, that's all the flashy distraction happening in the magician's right hand.
Yes.
But the real trick, the left hand, is the movement of massive, massive amounts of heroin into Europe. They are using the chaos of the military conflict and its shattered supply lines as a literal smokescreen.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you've hit on the terrible symmetry of this shadow economy.
Yeah.
Think about the logistics. Dom is a war correspondent, so why is he so fixated on narcotics? Because he sees the complete, uninterrupted supply chain.
Right.
Afghanistan, where Nick was operating back in 1986, produces the vast majority of the world's opium poppy.
Okay.
Neighboring Iran funnels that refined heroin across the border into Iraq. They move it right alongside the heavy munitions like those 81mm mortars that are killing British soldiers.
It's all moving together.
Exactly. How do you move tons of contraband? You bribe border guards, you hide it in legitimate cargo, you exploit the total breakdown of civic authority, and the local Iraqi pawns at the bottom of the food chain, they are kept addicted and compliant. They are literally fed the drugs, so they will willingly drive suicide bombs into checkpoints.
It's a completely parasitic loop. The war provides the lawless environment needed to move the drugs, and the drug money buys the weapons to perpetuate the war.
A perfect circle.
In Dom's theory, it moves from being just this manic hunch on the side of a dusty road to a concrete, deadly reality later that night.
Right.
The British launch a massive night raid on an insurgent stronghold in the Ghazaya district of Basra.
And the contrast leading up to that raid is striking. The British forces are based out of Basra Palace.
This was Saddam Hussein's place, right?
Formerly his majestic, opulent compound, yes. It's a place of looted marble bathrooms, intricate tile work, and grand staircases.
Sounds luxurious.
But its current reality is a sandbagged, fortified camp under constant daily bombardment from 107mm Iranian Katyusha rockets.
Now, I've heard the term Katyusha before. What makes them so significant in this environment?
Well, they are crude, unguided artillery rockets. They aren't precision weapons. They are area denial weapons.
Okay.
You set up a rail on the back of a pickup truck, point it roughly at the palace, and fire.
Just point and shoot.
Exactly. They are terrifying because they make a distinct shrieking sound as they come in. It creates an environment of perpetual grinding psychological siege. You never know when one is going to drop through the marble roof.
That sounds exhausting. And right before they leave this besieged palace for a highly dangerous raid into the city, we get this incredibly quiet, intimate moment.
Yeah.
Nick and Pete are sitting on the floor of the palace surrounded by sandbags, and Pete opens his laptop. He shows Nick photos of a bright, sunny birthday party at the Brockwell Park Lido, a swimming pool back in South London.
Right.
He's showing off his 7-year-old stepdaughter, Ruby.
Mm.
And Pete makes a confession. He tells Nick he's officially quitting war journalism.
He's done.
He says he's missed her last 3 birthdays, chasing the adrenaline in the story, but he absolutely refuses to miss her 7th birthday coming up in a few weeks.
It perfectly captures the psychological weight of the combat zone.
Yeah.
Pete is an adrenaline junkie. He has spent his adult life chasing the story through camera viewfinders. But the toll of the constant threat, the Katyushas, the suicide bombers, it has finally outweighed the thrill. He has reached his limit.
He just wants to go home.
Yet just minutes after this deeply humanizing, vulnerable moment, they are plunged into the absolute mechanical chaos of an urban night raid.
The sensory breakdown of this raid is intense.
Yeah.
B Company is moving into the Ghazai district with 9 upgraded APCs. They call them Bulldogs.
Right.
They are roaring through the darkened, narrow streets, crushing debris. The point man leading the breach is this 19-year-old kid named Terry Duggan, whose face is covered in nervous teenage acne.
Just a kid.
They hit the target house. Battering rams are smashing against reinforced steel doors. The Minimi machine gunner is laying down suppressive fire.
Let's talk about suppressive fire for a second. The Minimi is a light machine gun designed to put a massive volume of rounds downrange rapidly. The goal isn't always to hit a specific target. The goal is to force the enemy to keep their heads down so the assault team can maneuver.
Right.
The text vividly notes that the gunner is firing so heavily that the barrel of his gun is smoking with burnt oil.
It's a multi-sensory nightmare. You've got the smell of cordite, the screaming, the shattering concrete.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it all, Pete is snapping photos. His camera flash is illuminating the extreme violence like a strobe light in a nightclub.
Which is incredibly dangerous.
And meanwhile, Dom is foolishly trying to push his way past Nick and into the fatal funnel of the doorway, relying on that invisible force field ego of his.
They breach the house, and inside, the discovery perfectly validates Dom's theory.
Tell me about it.
They find a dead insurgent sprawled beneath the massive poster of the radical cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. There's an AK-47 on the floor, standard insurgency material.
Right.
But more importantly, sitting right in front of the television, there's a massive pile of brown blocks wrapped in heavy polythene. Pure heroin, massive quantities of it, sitting side by side with the insurgency's weapons in a residential house.
But the raid doesn't end cleanly. It rarely does.
No, it deteriorates rapidly.
It turns into a massive, sprawling street fight. The insurgents counterattack in the darkness. The British soldiers are forced to bomb burst, basically scattering in multiple directions through this rabbit warren of unlit alleys and raw, open sewage ditches.
Absolute chaos.
And Mick, whose primary job is just trying to keep the journalists safe, is pulled into visceral hand-to-hand combat.
The technological advantage of the PRRs and the night vision goggles breaks down when you are in a literal gutter.
Right.
A massive insurgent tackles Nick from behind. They roll into an open sewage ditch. Nick is being crushed, literally drowning in human waste and mud, completely unable to breathe or reach his sidearm.
And who saves him? It's Pete.
Yeah.
Pete, the fastidious cameraman who washes his socks every night and flosses his teeth. Pete kicks the insurgent in the head, picks up a dropped S-80 rifle, and shoots the attacker, saving Nick's life.
It highlights the profound camaraderie that forms among people under fire.
It really does.
Pete had told Nick earlier that the one thing he would miss about war was the brotherhood, and here he proves it. He steps entirely out of his role as an objective, non-combatant observer. He commits an act of extreme violence to save a life.
I am so struck by the whiplash of this sequence. You have Pete scrolling through mundane family birthday photos of a swimming pool in London, and literally mere minutes later, he is kicking a man in the head in a raw sewage ditch and firing an assault rifle.
It's jarring.
The juxtaposition is incredible, but the cost is immediate. As they run from the alley, Nick takes a high-velocity round straight through his arm.
It perfectly encapsulates the psychological toll of this existence. You cannot switch cleanly between those two realities.
No.
And strategically, it reinforces the grim reality of the insurgent playbook. They are deliberately blending massive high-value drug stashes with heavy munitions right in the middle of densely populated civilian areas.
Using the civilian.
Yes, it makes collateral damage and horrific close-quarters combat almost inevitable.
Mick survives drowning in the sewage, and he survives the gunshot to the arm. But he wakes up in the medical tent at the contingency operating base, and he wakes up to a reality that makes even less sense than the chaos of the firefight.
Right.
The narrative shifts abruptly here. It stops being a gritty, kinetic war story and suddenly morphs into an espionage thriller.
Because the anomalies of death begin to present themselves.
Ooh, I like how you phrased that.
Nick wakes up in a haze of morphine. The air is thick with the smell of antiseptics and bleach, and the first thing he sees is Dom.
But Dom is acting weird.
Completely different. Dom's entire persona has vanished. The arrogant, platinum-plated reporter who thought he was immune to bullets is frantic. He is pale, sweating, terrified.
Yeah.
He leans over Nick and whispers, "Pete's gone. It's all my fault. Remember, it wasn't me." And then Dom vanishes entirely. He flees the military base.
Wait, let me stop you right there. Dom's behavior completely contradicts his established character.
Oh.
If he's the guy with the massive ego who stands up in firefights for a good camera angle, why is he suddenly terrified and on the run? What is he so afraid of?
That doesn't track.
And then Nick gets the official story from the sergeant. He's told that Pete was shot outside the wire.
Apparently, Pete was trying to film helicopters taking off without permission, and local insurgents picked him off.
It's a plausible story for a chaotic war zone. Journalists wander off and get killed.
Sure.
But Nick's background as an elite DSS operator won't let him accept a neatly packaged story without looking at the physical evidence. He insists on visiting Pete's body in the refrigerated morgue tent.
Yeah.
And what he does there is essentially read the crime scene of the corpse.
Yes. The atmosphere in the morgue tent is just freezing silence.
Right.
Nick pulls back the sheet. He notices the entry wounds on Pete's chest, which look like standard bullet holes.
Right.
But then Nick physically rolls Pete's body over, and he specifically uncovers massive, devastating exit wounds on Pete's back. And this single observation leads to a massive deductive leap. What's fascinating here is we need to dive into the physics of terminal ballistics.
Let's do it.
British military personnel and embedded media are strictly required to wear Osprey body armor when operating outside the base. Now, we established that Pete was incredibly fastidious, right? He was heavily OCD about safety.
Right.
He wore a ground-down helmet just to be safe while filming. He wouldn't have gone to the bathroom without his armor, let alone outside the wire into an unsecured area to film helicopters.
Exactly. He was the most cautious guy there.
Now, consider how a high-velocity round, like a 5.56 or 7.62 millimeter bullet operates. When a bullet traveling at over 2,000 feet per second enters soft human tissue, it doesn't just poke a hole.
No.
It creates a temporary stretch cavity. It's a massive vortex of pressure behind it, much like the wake of a speeding boat. The bullet also begins to yaw or tumble, transferring its kinetic energy into the surrounding tissue, causing hydrostatic shock.
Wait, let me push back on that. If a bullet hits heavy Kevlar or ceramic plates, doesn't it still cause massive blunt force trauma?
Oh, definitely.
So how can Nick definitively prove, just by looking at the back, that Pete wasn't wearing his armor? Couldn't the armor just have failed?
It's a great question. Armor doesn't make you invincible. You will suffer broken ribs and severe bruising even if the armor stops the bullet.
Right.
However, if the bullet does penetrate, the ceramic backplates of the Osprey armor act as a rigid barrier.
Okay.
If a bullet passes cleanly through an unarmored body, the massive internal pressure equalizes explosively as it exits the skin, ripping a massive, gaping exit wound.
Oh, I see.
However, if the person is wearing heavy ceramic backplates, that armor absorbs, contains, or drastically alters that explosive exit. The tissue is compressed against the rigid plate.
Wow.
The fact that Nick found massive, unobstructed, crater-like exit wounds on Pete's back proves unequivocally, from a ballistic standpoint, that there was no armor plate pressing against Pete's back when he was shot. He was not wearing his Osprey armor.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I have to ask the logical question. If local insurgents wanted to kill a random journalist who is filming helicopters, why on earth would they walk up to him, politely ask him to take off his heavy body armor, and then shoot him in the chest?
They wouldn't.
They wouldn't. They'd just shoot him. Nick realizes instantly that the official story is a complete fabrication. Pete wasn't a casualty of an insurgent sniper. Pete was murdered, executed.
And that profound realization alters the entire trajectory of the narrative.
Completely.
Driven by an intense guilt because Pete died on his watch, and an absolute operator's need for the tactical truth, Nick heads back to the UK. He needs to face Pete's grieving family.
Yeah.
But the moment he steps foot in a London hospital, he's intercepted by ghosts from his own intelligence past.
The murky morality of intelligence agencies steps right into the glaring spotlight.
It really does.
Nick is at Guy's Hospital in London, getting his gunshot wound looked at, and he's cornered by Sundance and trainers. These are two massive, heavily built thugs who work for a high-ranking MI6 handler known only as the Yes Man. They hand Nick an envelope stuffed with cash and tell him he has a mandatory meeting at Vauxhall Cross.
But Nick is stubbornly loyal. Before he goes to MI6, he fulfills his duty to Pete.
Right.
He travels to South London to visit Tallulah and Ruby, Pete's wife and stepdaughter, and the heartbreak of delivering the news is compounded by a profound, bureaucratic insult.
Oh, this part made me so angry.
Tallulah reveals that she doesn't even have Pete's body. She was told Pete was hastily cremated in Basra on the direct orders of a Foreign and Commonwealth Office official named David Morelands.
And Nick immediately knows that's a fake name and a fake narrative.
Yeah.
First of all, Pete carried an organ donor card. He specifically wanted his body brought home intact to help others.
Right.
He would never have requested cremation. Plus, Nick knows how the system works. David Morelands doesn't exist in the FCO directory.
No.
The cremation was a deliberate, sanitized cover-up to destroy the physical ballistic evidence on Pete's body. They burned the evidence of the exit wounds.
It's a textbook intelligence sweep. Evidence destruction under the guise of bureaucratic efficiency.
Gross.
And while Nick is at Pete's house, he asks to see Pete's meticulous home office. He's looking for a thread to pull. And he finds a crucial clue.
The invoice.
Yes, a rejected invoice for 2 days of secret filming in Dublin. The invoice is stamped with aggressive, highly insulting rejection notes from Dom's ambitious television producer, Moira.
So Pete was doing off-the-books work.
Secret work in Ireland, and someone at the network desperately didn't want it known or paid for.
Armed with this clue, Nick heads to the meeting with the Yes Man. And I want to talk about Vauxhall Cross, the MI6 headquarters.
Ah, the architecture of espionage.
Because we just spent all this time in the dust and blood of a shattered palace in Basra, and now we are in this hyper-secure fortress on the River Thames.
It's a totally different kind of warfare.
It really is. The building has Perspex security pods that analyze the chemical composition of the air around you for explosives before the doors unlock. It has triple-glazed windows specifically designed to vibrate slightly to block laser and radio frequency eavesdropping. It is the absolute pinnacle of modern espionage architecture.
It isolates you completely from the outside world. And inside the sterile fortress, the Yes Man drops a massive bombshell. He reveals that Dominic Kondratowicz, the arrogant journalist, is an intelligence asset. He is paid by Her Majesty's government.
Okay, stop. Why do massive intelligence agencies like MI6 love reporters so much?
Because of a concept called non-official cover, or NOC.
NOC, okay.
If an MI6 agent goes to Kabul posing as a diplomat, everyone assumes he's a spy. But a journalist has a legitimate, globally accepted reason to ask extremely probing questions.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. They can cross hostile borders, carry high-end camera equipment into restricted areas, and talk to dangerous cartel leaders or warlords. They are the ultimate overt spies. They hide their intelligence gathering in plain sight under the banner of the free press.
Wow.
But the Yes Man's revelation comes with a very dark accusation.
A really dark accusation. The Yes Man suspects that Don has flipped. He believes Dom is using his bulletproof journalistic cover and the secure routes he established for his reporting to actively run the Afghan to Europe heroin network.
And the Yes Man shows Nick horrifying photographs to back up this explosive theory.
Yeah.
They are grainy pictures of a young MI6 agent being waterboarded in a freelance Afghan bounty hunter prison.
Brutal.
And the intelligence timeline correlates perfectly. Dom was in Kabul, ostensibly filming his award-winning documentary on women's refuges at the exact time this MI6 agent was captured, tortured, and executed.
Right.
The Yes Man connects the dots for Nick. Dom is protecting his lucrative heroin supply line by ruthlessly taking out intelligence agents who get too close to the truth.
I have to push back hard on this narrative, though.
Go for it.
If Dom is so passionately, vehemently anti-drugs, as we literally saw him arguing in the dust in Iraq, yelling about how heroin is fueling the insurgency, Why would he suddenly be the kingpin running a massive drug ring?
It's a valid question.
Is Dom actually a Walter White figure, hiding his deep criminality behind a self-righteous crusading persona? Or is the yes man lying? Is the yes man just trying to cover up a catastrophic intelligence failure, or maybe a corrupt cell within his own agency, by framing the missing journalist?
That is the classic wilderness of mirrors in espionage. You don't know who to trust because everyone's job is deception.
Right.
But the mention of waterboarding raises the stakes immensely. We need to understand the mechanics of this torture.
Yeah, explain that.
It's not just physical suffocation. The interrogators strap the victim to a board, incline the head downward, place a cloth over the face, and pour water over the breathing passages. It triggers the mammalian diving reflex. It is a psychological terror, a mock execution that breaks the mind by convincing the brain on a biological level that it is actively drowning and dying.
That is horrifying.
If Dom is involved with people who utilize these methods, Nick's manhunt isn't just a fact-finding mission anymore. It's a descent into the absolute darkest, most depraved methodologies of the global war on terror.
So with a fat stack of untraceable euros provided by the yes man, the fake invoice clue from Pete's desk, and deep, deep suspicions about absolutely everyone's motives, Nick heads to Dublin to follow Dom's digital and physical trail.
We move from the kinetic combat zone to the quiet tradecraft of the modern city.
Right. Nick's first stop is the TVZ-24 television station in Dublin, and the environmental contrast is deliberate here.
Yes.
We go from the dust, heat, and blood of Basra to a slick corporate environment. There are white tiles, glass walls, and a literal steel waterfall in the lobby.
Very corporate.
Here he meets Moira, the producer who rejected Pete's invoice. She is ruthlessly ambitious, heavily made up, and entirely focused on the network's bottom line.
Cold.
She fires Nick from his security contract, absolutely refuses to honor Pete's invoice, and even tries to exploit Pete's tragic death by asking Nick to do a sensationalized on-camera interview about his murdered friend.
She is just incredibly callous. But Nick finds a quiet ally in Kate, a young, sympathetic assistant at the station. Kate is disgusted by Moira's behavior, so she pays Nick the money owed to Pete out of her own pocket. And she reveals a critical, hidden detail about Dom.
This is huge.
Dom had been secretly donating vast amounts of his own money to an Afghan women's refuge, the exact same refuge featured in his famous documentary. Moira had refused to reimburse him for the expenses, so Dom paid it himself.
This is a massive piece of the puzzle. It tells us Dom's empathy for the victims of this region is genuine. He actually cares about the people broken by the war.
Yes.
This severely complicates the yes man's theory that Dom is a ruthless, cold-blooded drug lord. Driven to find real answers, Nick travels to Dom's private residence in the highly affluent Ballsbridge neighborhood of Dublin.
Oh yeah, the mansion.
It's a €7 million mansion.
Yeah.
Massive gates, security cameras, and inside, he meets Dom's wife, Siobhan.
And Siobhan is a complete mess. It's the middle of the day, but she's day-drinking white wine, chain-smoking, and acting highly evasive, almost frantic. When Nick asks about Dom's whereabouts, she lies and smoothly says he's on a reporting trip in the mountains, out of contact. But Nick knows she's hiding something massive.
And this leads to an exploration of surveillance and entry techniques.
Yes, the application of covert entry tradecraft in a civilian environment. Nick leaves the house politely, but he returns at 3 a.m. He prepares meticulously at his hotel, the Conrad.
Right.
And it's all about improvising with mundane items. He buys floral shower caps to put over his muddy boots so he won't leave wet tracks on Siobhan's polished hardwood floors.
That's smart.
He gets high-test fishing line. And most ingeniously, he uses a cheap 2-liter plastic cola bottle.
Okay, I need you to explain the cola bottle. Because in every spy movie, the agent just, slides a credit card down the door frame and clicks it open. Why is Nick cutting up a soda bottle?
Because the credit card trick is largely a Hollywood myth, especially on modern security windows.
Really?
Yeah. A credit card is rigid. It can slip past a simple slanted latch on an interior door, but a window latch often requires you to navigate 2 right angles. You have to slide down the gap, hook around the frame, and push up against the locking mechanism.
Oh, I see.
A rigid card physically cannot bend around those corners, but if you cut a curved sheet of plastic out of a 2-liter soda bottle, the plastic retains that natural curve.
Ah.
You can snake it down the window gap, and the curve allows it to hook around the right angle and flip the latch silently. It's brilliant, low-tech improvisation.
I love that Blue Peter style tradecraft. It's the mundane reality of espionage.
So once inside, Nick observes Seal Khan from the shadows of her own home.
Right.
She's sitting at her massive kitchen island, crying over a Hotmail message on her glowing laptop screen. Nick can't read the whole message from his angle, but his operator training kicks in.
He ignores the emotion. He ignores the emotional content and focuses entirely on the metadata. He notes the email timestamp, 8:37 a.m. GMT. He looks at his watch, calculates the local time, applies the 4.5-hour time difference, and instantly pinpoints the sender's location.
The email originated in Afghanistan. Dom is in Kabul right now.
But the physical clues Nick finds in the kitchen after Siohan goes to bed are even more revealing. He finds a stack of opened mail.
Yes.
One is a desperate letter from a local drug outreach program indicating that Siohan's 20-year-old son, Finbar, is missing from his heroin rehab sessions.
And the second letter?
The second is a brisk letter from a high-end estate agent confirming that the €6.5 million Ballsbridge mansion is being rapidly liquidated, sold for cash as fast as possible.
Okay, let's connect all of these threads. This raises an important question. What is Dom actually doing in Afghanistan?
Right.
If we piece these disparate clues together, the narrative shifts entirely away from the yes man's theory. Dom isn't running the heroin trade. He has gone entirely rogue to destroy it from the source. Because the macro tragedy of the global heroin trade in the Middle East has become a devastating micro tragedy in his own home. The very heroin that is fueling the insurgency in Iraq has found its way to Dublin and destroyed his stepson, Finbar.
It's a deeply tragic irony. Dom is out in the desert fighting this global geopolitical war on narcotics, pontificating to cameras about supply lines, and his own family falls victim to the exact same supply line back in the safety of Europe.
Precisely. The shadow war came home, and this realization explains every single anomaly we've discussed.
How so?
Pete wasn't killed by Iraqi insurgents. He was almost certainly assassinated because his off-the-books secret filming in Dublin, the rejected invoice, inadvertently captured the Irish side of the drug ring.
Oh, wow.
The cartel realized Pete had video evidence connecting the local Dublin street dealers to the international Afghan supply line. So they eliminated him in Basra and used a corrupt, fake FCO official to instantly cremate the body and destroy the ballistic evidence.
And what about Siohan selling the house?
Sio Khan is rapidly liquidating a massive financial asset, selling the mansion for one of two reasons. Either she is secretly funding Dom's one-man vigilante war against the cartel in Afghanistan, or the cartel has captured Dom, and she is desperately trying to raise the cash to pay a massive ransom.
It is an incredible, harrowing journey we've tracked today. We started with a dying girl, Farah, on a freezing Afghan mountainside in 1986, a victim of extreme societal apathy.
Yeah.
We moved to a bloody, deafening, chaotic raid in Basra, where the lines between religious insurgency and a narcotics cartel blur entirely into one violent mess.
Right.
And we ended up in a high-stakes intelligence hunt in the affluent, quiet streets of Dublin, using soda bottles to uncover a deeply personal, hidden family tragedy.
It forces a complete reevaluation of everything we see on the surface. When you, the listener, sit in your living room and watch a gripping war report on a 24-hour news channel, you have to ask yourself, what hidden agendas, what corrupt intelligence ties, or what profound personal tragedies are entirely invisible just behind the camera lens?
Exactly. We accept the geography of conflict exactly as it's presented to us on the screen, but the real geography is human motivation.
Which brings us right back to where we started.
That map, that comforting, jagged red line that generals and politicians point to on the news, it simply doesn't exist. The front line isn't a guarded border in the desert.
No.
The front line is a shipping container of 81mm mortars hidden under a tarp. It's an encrypted email server sitting in a Dublin mansion. It's a fresh track mark on a desperate addict's arm.
And I want to leave you with one chilling final thought to mull over as you go about your day.
What's that?
This dossier reveals a world where Western governments spend billions of dollars and thousands of lives fighting a highly publicized war on terror on the surface.
Right.
Yet the actual tactical mechanics of those wars, the heavy weapons, the logistical transport, the safe routes used by the insurgents to kill Western soldiers, are entirely subsidized by the very narcotics that are flooding into Western cities and destroying their own citizens at home. The enemy's bullets are bought with the addiction of the West. In a world where opposing armies effectively share and fund the exact same supply lines, who is actually winning?
That is heavy. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the surface of the stories you are told, look for the hidden mechanics, and we'll see you next time.